Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's session. We're going to be talking about empowering your business with Power BI, and a number of people have registered today to hear all about what Simon has to share with us and what the art of possible is with Power BI. So my name is Danusha Jolliffe. I am the Marketing and Customer Services Director here at TVision. I've been with the business nearly 7 years. And looking after the marketing team and the customer services team. So I help out and organise with the webinars. And I'm really pleased today to say that Simon here, the Analytics Director at Hobson Analytics, is joining us. Simon.
Thank you. So a little bit about me. My name obviously is Simon Devine. I've been working with data for a number of years and also with operations. So my interest really is in both of those. How can we use the data to better help organizations be aware of what their information offers and also to provide insights into that data? What we'll be looking at today is an introduction into how it can help, also the main benefits and features of Power BI, how we can use it in real world environments, and a demo with Q&A so you can see Power BI live and in action. There's a question.
So Simon, so on that note, if anyone does have any questions, I'll be monitoring them as we go along, so Simon can do the demo for you. Either pop them in the chat or in the question box, and I will ask at the appropriate time. So please feel free to ask questions as we're going along. Sometimes if you leave them to the end, it kind of like you lose your train of thought. So I'll make sure I don't interrupt Simon, but if anyone does ask, I'll just pop that question out if that's okay.
Fantastic, thanks for that. That was just literally what I was going to say. So what is Power BI? And forgive me if you're already aware of it and are using it, but we'll start from the beginning and we'll definitely ramp up in what's possible. So what is it? So for me, it's an interactive reporting platform, nice and simple. BI can also be called data analytics or business analytics or BI or back in the day, reporting. And really what we can do with Power BI, or why we can use it, is it's a cloud-based visual analytics tool. And one of the things we get from that is the ability to use the tool anywhere on any device to really get to visualize our data with speed, with efficiency, and also with accuracy. Power BI's drag and drop feature, which we'll look at later as well, means that it isn't something that you need to be an out-and-out developer to use. So anybody within the organization with the right permissions can start to tailor their reports to suit their needs, and we'll see some of that in action as well in a little while. So one of the things that we'll be looking at is how you can use existing applications, content packs produced by TVision, Bevica, to analyze the data that you've got, or you can create your own, and you can do this with speed to start to pull information directly for your systems, many different systems, really, really quickly. So some examples of data sources would be the likes of Dynamics Business Central, Dynamics NAV, Salesforce, Dynamics 365, Google. Really, the options are unlimited, and we'll look at some of those in a little while as well. So some of the features. You can connect and combine multiple data sources. It's rare that we find a data source that we can't connect to out of the box, but most of the time, even those, we can bring them in. And the combining different data sources is also where the power is. You can imagine you've got a historical data source, maybe a historical ERP system, and you still want to pull that data in so you can do forecasting and analysis on. You could do that. You've got data that comes from a complete other warehousing system, no problem, we can bring that in. You really can start to use Power BI to bring all of these things together. You can automatically schedule refreshes. So what does that mean? It means your data is going to be up to date. You're not having to manually export data, build reports, distribute them. The data will be up to date as often really as you want, either instantaneous using direct query, or every half hour even, if you want. We can transform and manipulate the data easily. So if you've not got Power BI or similar already, you'll be used to taking the data out, perhaps adding columns, especially if it's in Excel, if statements, manipulation, all that sort of thing. With Power BI, we do that once when we create your reports and your dashboards, and from then on, it's taken care of. No need to repeat that. And what we've got with business intelligence and decision making is once we've got that data, once it's transformed, we can identify trends, areas of strength, areas of weakness, and give you the ability to make decisions from the insights that it provides. Some of the features that we're going to look at: drill down. So can you imagine there we've got a list of account managers or salespeople with sales, and we want to drill in to find more information. You can do that without the need to open a brand new report or something outside of the system. We can do it all within the same data, and interoperability with other Microsoft apps. So as you'd expect, Power BI, as it is a Microsoft application, plays well with Teams and can live within Teams, SharePoint, PowerPoint, any really tools that you've got, it can live with and work with really well. The AI feature is really neat. So one of the things that we'll look at today is how perhaps you've got a report that's already built and it's designed in a specific way, and you want to ask one simple question of it. Traditionally, that would then have been a request to a developer to write a new report or change it. Now with Power BI, you can use Q&A to have and literally speak in English, and it will produce the report or the query that you're asking for, and we'll see that live. And the marketplace, which is any number of additional connectors or reports or dashboards that are available to you. Some from, yep.
Sorry, someone has asked, is there a limit to the number of dashboards you can have or that you would recommend?
Recommend is an interesting one. So I suppose recommend depends upon what you can consume and how much. One of the things you do have is that even though you might have let's say in the organization 100 different reports or dashboards, you would provide access only to those reports or dashboards that people would need. So that's a neat way of restricting access right down. I suppose in terms of a limit to how many people would have, I tend to build them in a function. So I'd have a sales report with a dashboard, maybe a procurement one with a dashboard, and so I wouldn't have reports and dashboards that are point specific, and we'll see in a second how you can use perhaps one report to do multiple things.
Thank you.
So the marketplace has a load of different connectors which can speed up and simplify how we connect and pull our data in. So as I just mentioned, there's at least 126 different connectors. Now, for the most part, this isn't something you need to know, really. It'll take care of itself, but they include connectors for NAV, NAV, Business Central, D365 Sales and Marketing, Google, Salesforce, SharePoint, Excel, really important, as even if we are using Power BI, I don't think it's practical for most businesses to say that they're just going to stop having Excel as a data source. And when we implement Power BI, we take a practical approach on that. It's not possible. So let's see how we get on. So why might you need it? So if one of these rings true, then it's definitely worth us speaking. So you're spending a lot of time and money pulling reports together. You're struggling to get an overview of business operations apart from manually generated reports, perhaps every week, month or quarter. Your data requires high level of manipulation to give you the insight that you need. or you've trust issues. So the reporting has inconsistencies, it needs redoing regularly, you find errors and then have to go back and have that corrected. And none of those are things that I'd say you'd look at and say, well, that's, you know, a terrible thing. That these sorts of things happen in a lot of organizations, and that's why we work with quite so many, is because we recognize these. If you've got these, then it's absolutely worth us speaking. So content packs, what are these? Well, to us, content packs are pre-canned, I suppose you'd say, pre-written applications or reports where we've already worked and we recognize that there's something that can add value. And so, as an example, accounts receivable, you'll want a age debt, you'll want to be able to drill into the invoice, you'll want to be able to see things by customer, you want to see overdue amounts, and that sort of thing is what we've produced as content packs. Again, if that's of interest, we'd love to be able to talk to you about it. So, apologies for going on for quite so long just to begin with, but what we'll do is we'll jump straight into a demo if we may. So I mentioned Power BI is a tool that you can consume from any device. I'm looking at this via a web browser. There's apps for Android and for iOS as well, so you really can consume it on any device. Here what I've got are favorites that are important to me. So the ones that we're going to look at today is demo data for sales. So I've got two things right now that I'm going to look at: sales dashboard and the sales report. So if I open my sales dashboard, the first thing that I see is key pieces of information that are relevant for me. Because this is a dashboard and how it's designed, it'll flex to suit the size of the screen you're working on, which is really neat. So I don't just have to have it in a fixed format. Equally, if I was looking at this and saying that's good, but actually for me, that's less important and I want that to be much bigger, I can design this to suit my needs. The thing with dashboards is you can subscribe to them as well. So traditional reporting, perhaps you want your sales figures delivered to your inbox at 5 p.m. every evening or 9 a.m. the following morning, or you want your debtors to be delivered on email on 9 a.m. every Friday, for example. You can do that by subscribing to these dashboards, and that will then take care of itself. Another thing you've got as well is the ability to comment. So I can on here say I wish to add a comment, and you can bring other people into this discussion. So I can find Danusha. Can we discuss this, please? And Danusha will now receive that as a comment. We can do that with Teams as well. I'm just using the inbuilt comments here, but Teams works in exactly the same way. Danusha will now have that, and if she replies, I'll see that. Another neat feature that we have is the ability, sorry, let me just close that, is the ability to create alerts. So perhaps we want to know if our, in fact, let's pick Net Promoter. We want to know if our Net Promoter score drops below 50. And we want to be told on email and within our app if we've got it. Creating an alert is that simple. I've now added a new alert to tell me if something happens, positive or negative, and it'll send me an email, and via my iOS or Android app, it'll send me a pop-up on my phone or tablet as well. All of this is standard, and we've not actually done anything yet that is outside of what you'd be able to get up and running pretty quickly. So one of the things you might want, you might be looking at this and saying, okay, I can see the open opportunities by salesperson. I want to see some more information. So what you do is you just click. And what we do is we drill into the report. So we've moved from a dashboard to a report. So the first thing to say is that the design of these is entirely up to you. There's no set way of doing it. It can be developed to suit you, your branding, your preferences, everything is bespoke for you, or can be. So this first one, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at GP, actual, in progress, target, and the number of opportunities. I've got tables, excuse me. So these are just high level numbers that I can see. With Power BI, one of the things that you can do straight out of the box is I can chat, as I mentioned. I can export that data. So based upon permissions, I can drop that straight out into Excel. No problem at all. I can, on any of these, look at this data and say, okay, I can see that. Perhaps I want a bit more information. So I talked about drill through before, and all of this is easily developed. So there's nothing that's set in stone. So we can add this or not to suit you. So I want to drill through there and see perhaps opportunity detail where there is no opportunity stage recorded. No problem at all. None, luckily. I can get right down to the detail straight off. And you see what we do here, the reason why we do it like this is we want it to be as limited number of clicks as possible, really to start to get to the information. Because this is Power BI as well, this is great, but it's not static. So I can say, I just want to know where we're the preferred supplier. And you'll see straight off the data's flex. I now have a smaller number of opportunities, and I can see which ones were preferred supplier for, as the data flex is there, and also whereabouts in the country perhaps they are. Now, this is good, and perhaps I like what I'm seeing, but I don't want to see a donut chart. No problem. Again, given permissions, so it's entirely up to you whether you offer this to your consumers of the data. I can personalize this. So actually, I want to see a simple stacked bar chart, and that's what I want to see. Now I've changed my view of the data, and that's pretty important as well. That's my view, not everybody else's. I have filters down the side. So from here, I can say, I just want to look at a specific customer or a specific salesperson, perhaps, and my data will flex. Or I can just use the eraser and get rid of that as a selection. I can have multiple tabs or sheets. So I just want to look at opportunities that are going to close this month or have closed this month, perhaps. So now I'm looking at that detail. One of the things that I mentioned is the ability to drill through or down. So I can use this little turn on drill down button here. And when I click that and I say, I just want to look at April, that'll now filter my data. So I'm just looking at specific sales for a specific person. And you can do that pretty much anywhere that it's designed, which is cool. So just give it that. Okay. So I mentioned as well the ability to add comments. In the same way you can do that for a dashboard, you can do that for a report as well. So where is that useful? Perhaps you've clicked on a set of options. So I'm just looking at sales of chairs for April. Same principle. I can send Danusha a message. Can we discuss April sales chairs? Now the neat thing about that is when Danusha opens her note, the data will automatically filter to the selection that I've seen when I've asked that question. So for collaboration with other people, that's fantastic.
Oh, we've had a question saying, are the different information tabs individual pages?
Yes. Yeah, they are. So each one of these, in effect, is a separate page within the system or within the report. And it's a bit like, in fact, what I'll do to answer that question, I'll show you how, again, with permissions, you can change quickly how your report looks and works. So I'm just clicking edit. I can click edit because I have permission. And the first thing you see is tabs down the bottom. So that's pretty much like Excel. In actual fact, in Power BI, when you display them, they don't display as tabs along the bottom, they display down the side, but that's just what they are. So if you look there, that's a different tab and so on. So that's how that works. This edit feature is really neat. So here, if I wanted, I can minimize that. I can say, that's great. Now I want a new sort of visual. Here's all the standard visuals, and I'll show you how many more there are. So from here, then I can decide what data I want to bring in. So I want to bring in it by account. Select my field, drag and drop, and that then adds it. So let me just talk about the visuals that we can have as well. Sorry. So other than all of these standards, and I'm not going to talk you through them now, but we can absolutely go through them in more detail later if you wish. There are a remarkable amount of standard, mostly free, some aren't, some are paid for, but quite a lot of available visualizations that literally, if I'm interested in one, so the code there from Microsoft, this loads it, I can add it to my report, and we'll see there that visual is now available. So that again takes away the need for development. You don't have to do any of that yourselves. Okay. Does that answer the question there? Sorry, I'm guessing it did. So final thing. So we've got that. We can see that we can flex the data. We can see we can share it, collaborate with others. We can see in a web browser, we can, if we're the owner and if we have permissions, we can edit the application so that everybody can see an updated version without any need for a serious development. Of course, if you want to change the model, you do that using the Power BI desktop app, but it's the same, literally is the same tool. You can bookmark elements. So I always know when I go in, I'm only interested in preferred supplier, negotiation, and one of two. Brilliant. I'll add a personal bookmark. So 527 sales ops. I can make that my default view, or I can just have it. So then when I open my bookmarks, I can say 5 to 7, and it flexes my data as well. So I mentioned the ability to look at natural query or ask questions in English. So what we've got there is fantastic. I can see detail, I can drill down, I can export to Excel. I've got everything I want, but I might have specific questions that are relevant to me. What we can do is build these in a way that you can ask questions in English. So I want to see total sales in 2020 by customer for April Reed on a map. And it can flex the data for me. Now that I could have said as a table, I could have said all account managers, I could have said sales stages 5 to 7. It could have been show me all stock locations for this product. It could be show me my slow moving stock and their location. Whatever you can imagine, if we build the data model well, you can access all of this data. And really, this Q&A feature removes the need for massive amounts of development or bespoke reports. So the earlier question there, which was how many reports and dashboards can I have, using Q&A well, you can really reduce the amount of dashboards that you need. Okay, so next bit, if I may. So what we've looked at there is reports and dashboards. Great, we've looked at alerts, we've looked at bookmarks, we've looked at drill downs, we've looked at Q&A. And this is great, but sometimes you just want Excel. And I think that's the beauty of Power BI and Microsoft is they recognize that sometimes you're just going to want to see the data and play with it. No problem at all. Again, with the right permissions, so we can disable this by user, by team, by report even. What I can do is I can come here and say I want to analyze that sales data in Excel. And now what it will do is open up a Excel tab. And here what I can say is I'm going to want account manager. I'm going to want perhaps sales value, and maybe month. So why is that useful? We're using exactly the same data that we see in our dashboards and reports. So to come back to an old but still very valid statement, we've got one version of the truth. This Excel report will be as up to date as dashboards. In fact, if you save it and then share it, providing it's still linked back to Power BI, it'll always be as up to date. And we're not actually having to have different ways and different mechanisms of providing reports. It's a really neat feature. So.
Simon, someone's asked the question saying, if you've mentioned security and permissions, and is that internal, but can you share all of this externally as well?
So there are mechanisms to provide external access. So perhaps you have customers who you want to give a secure copy of your information about them. The best way of doing that is where what you do is you give them access to a specific Power BI report and they use their Power BI licenses.
Okay, thank you.
It's perhaps I've probably not done a fantastic job of explaining that, but what it does is you give them access, security kicks in at your end, which limits what they can see 100%, but they're consuming their Power BI license to view this data.
Cool, thank you.
There are other things you could do. If it's properly public domain data, then you can just share freely. But if this is business data, you absolutely would never do that.
Yeah, no, it's okay, thank you.
So just to recap, we've looked at how we can consume the data. We've looked at a predefined report there, but equally I dragged a new visual and we could create that. It's interactive, context sensitive. We've seen that work. I showed how you could share and collaborate with others. Email alerts, we didn't see one come through, but that just worked. Just as I said, we set an alert and that works. And as a tool, generally, we think it's familiar, such as well, it's Outlook, Excel. It's familiar Microsoft product. Okay, so what we just looked at, and I haven't shown actually, is the mobile, but again, we can go through that if you want one-to-one. And we've shown how we can do dashboards. So pricing. So it's important to say these are accurate as of now, but from April, there's an expectation that Microsoft will increase their prices by 9%. So just be aware of that. So what we looked at today was the Pro license, Power BI Pro, $750 right now per month. Full collaboration, mobile access, it refreshes the data 8 times a day as standard, but we talked at the very start about perhaps using direct query to be literally split second bang up to date. That's absolutely possible. Exporting files, you can run a Power BI report within PowerPoint, or you can export a PDF, which is static, or export to PowerPoint as static. The model size limits aren't for the most part going to be an issue, but we can talk about them as and when we look at your data. And if you've got Microsoft E5 365 licenses, you've already got Power BI. If not, you can simply add it on for the $750 per user per month. We then go to premium. So the middle ones, I think, is the important out of the two premium types. So what does premium give you? Slightly more advanced AI, many more refreshes, and a much bigger data model. But again, importantly, you can mix these within your organization. There are some limitations as to how it works, but they won't cause friction in how you use it. If you've got over 200 and odd Power BI users, then premium per capacity might be the way to go. It's a fair bit of money, but there's no requirement for consumers of this to have licenses. They just get it, which is pretty neat. So sorry, I appreciate I've already gone over, but so what next? If you're interested, the approach that we take that works really well is we'll provide some free consultancy remote via Teams, where we'll talk about options, we'll look at the data that you've got, we'll discuss what we might be able to do based upon the needs and the requirements that you tell us. And off the back of that, we would build a program of work with recommendations for implementation and or training. So I appreciate we did go through that at a pace, but thank you for listening and asking questions as well. Is there any more questions that I could answer now?
Someone did say, how quickly can you go from we've got this idea internally to seeing it? I mean, I know how long is a piece of string, but it's a rough guide.
So it's a good one, actually. So in actual fact, let's say you say, I've got an idea, we've got this data, we want to be able to see this data and flex it. Usually within a matter of hours, we've connected to the data source, we've extracted it, and we're starting to get insights. To turn it into a fully fledged report or dashboard takes a little bit longer, because what we look to do is work with you to identify more a broader range of requirements, so it's not just one point solution. But pretty quickly is the answer in terms of how quick to go from nothing to something.
Great. So as always, thank you so much, Simon, for, it was always great to have an external speaker just to sort of give us that business point of view. As with all of our webinars, the link is sent out within a day or so, and the information is also put on our website. So thank you very much, Simon, for attending. Thank you everyone else for joining us today, and we'll speak soon, I'm sure.
All the best.
Great, thank you so much.